Good morning. It's National Radio Day. Happy day. The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, even turning a page difficult, if not impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org. The Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from USA Today for Thursday, August the 20th, 2026. Your readers today,
Jim Duffy
and Ken Drost. Beginning with the front page, which I always think is a good place to start. The Democrats see a mixed bag in Florida. Outlier candidate scores another stunning upset. Philip M. Bailey of USA Today writes, Democrats continued to trade blows in their factional war, with a progressive firebrand prevailing in the Florida Senate primary, while two centrist House incumbents fended off more left-leaning challengers. The primary contest stretched across the nation Tuesday, August the 18th, but most of the action was in the Sunshine State, where State Representative Angie Nixon, an outspoken member of the Democratic Socialists of America, defeated Alex Vindman, retired Army Lieutenant Colonel, in a stunning upset. We showed the world what organized people can accomplish, Nixon said in her victory speech. Excuse me. At the same time, Reps. Jared Moskowitz and Debbie Wasserman Schultz, two well-known Florida Democrats, solidly in the establishment camp, won their respective fights to remain on Capitol Hill against progressive opponents. Both were thrust into freshly gerrymandered districts created by the Florida legislature at President Donald Trump's behest to give Republicans an advantage in the midterms this fall. In both races, the two incumbents faced insurgents who ran under the Democratic Socialist banner with campaigns that emphasized universal health care, cost of living concern, and opposition to Israel. Florida voters also were charged with selecting contenders to succeed Republican Governor Ron DeSantis, former presidential candidate who is term limited. Everything was stacked against Nixon, the 32-year-old state legislator, in a race establishment Democrats had hoped to make somewhat competitive this fall. There was little polling in the race, but many had expected a win by Vindman, former national security official who testified against Trump during his first impeachment trial. He outpaced Nixon in fundraising by a wide margin. But with about 95% of precincts reporting, Nixon won the primary by about 11 percentage points in arguably the most surprising win for a DSA candidate this year. We did it, y'all. The fight has just begun, Nixon posted on X on August 18. She ran on a platform that called for universal health care and a $25 an hour minimum wage. She gained a bit of notoriety after staging a sit-in at DeSantis' office earlier this year in protest against Florida's redrawn congressional map. That incident is set for trial in September after she was charged with trespassing and resisting an officer without violence. Nixon is the first black woman to win a major party nomination for Senate in Florida and is now going to face Republican Senator Ashley Moody in a race forecasters ran as solidly in the GOP column. But progressive and Democratic Socialists of America activists are likely to spotlight this win as another example of their grassroots strength. Centrists looking to keep Democratic Socialists at bay scored a high-profile win in Florida's 23rd congressional, a newly drawn area that forecasters rate as the only toss-up House race in the Senate. Moskowitz, a fierce defender of Israel, coasted to victory over Oliver Larkin, who went viral for many of his confrontations with conservative commentators over his views on cable TV leading up to the election. Initial results showed the two-term incumbent winning by almost 30 percentage points in a district that is 25% Jewish, with a high concentration of Holocaust survivors. Now, much of the race centered on the U.S. relationship with Israel, which has defined several Democratic primaries this year. Larkin ran as a sharp critic of the foreign ally, calling its war in Gaza a genocide, casting himself as the anti-Zionist opposition in the race. Moskowitz, who is Jewish, declined to debate his opponent, accusing him of running against me solely on my religion, which Larkin denied. Wasserman Schultz, former chairwoman of the Democratic National Committee, raised eyebrows when she jumped into the race for Florida's 20th Congressional, another newly created seat. Now that's because the district is made up of a plurality black area at a time when black Democrats are concerned about eroding diversity initiatives and representation on Capitol Hill. Earlier this year, the U.S. Supreme Court limited parts of the 1965 Voting Rights Act in a ruling cheered by conservatives as a symbol of a colorblind society. But that civil rights leaders and other liberal opponents say could ultimately reduce the number of black and Hispanic members of Congress. Wasserman Schultz, who is white, argued that her years of experience would benefit South Florida constituents, but she was sharply criticized by fellow Democrats for entering the race against four black candidates. Wasserman Schultz received a plurality of the vote, defeating Holness, her closest rival, by about 25 points. Representative Byron Donalds joined the growing rank of black candidates running for governor after winning Florida's Republican gubernatorial nomination. Donalds, who's 47, received the key Trump endorsement and raised more than $100 million for his campaign in a campaign that featured incendiary attacks by Republican primary rival James Fishback, conservative activist who lobbed anti-black remarks against the congressman throughout the elections. Donalds, a rising Republican star in the House, now faces former Representative David Jolly, a Republican-turned-Democrat and noted Trump opponent, who glided through his nomination by a 55-point margin. He hopes to stitch together a coalition of Democrats, independents, and disaffected Republicans in a contest that will favor the GOP in a state the president carried by 13 percentage points in 2024. Now, Donalds is just the second black candidate nominated for Florida governor, following former Tallahassee Mayor Andrew Gillum, a Democrat who made history as the first black major party nominee in 2018. And finally, the president's touch wasn't enough to get Representative Corey Mills over the hump after troubling misconduct allegations against him saw many Republicans turn against him before the primary. Mills was the subject of a House ethics inquiry over accusations of sexual misconduct and or dating violence, stemming from a Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police Department response to a report that he had assaulted a woman with whom he was in a relationship. The congressman has faced calls from within his own party to resign, which he has vehemently denied and which the president overlooked when supporting him for re-election. By a decisive 13-point margin, however, Republican voters chose Ryan Elia, a former Orlando-based news anchor who was backed by Representatives Mike Haradopoulos and Anna Paulina Luna. The outcome marks another rare loss for Trump in picking winners in Republican primaries this year. Elia beat out Mills, along with three other Republicans, to face Democrat Bale Dalton, former Navy captain and NASA Chief of Staff, in the fall.
Racing to save a living relic of the revolution. From Phaedra Threathen of USA Today. Rick Wise let his imagination wander for a bit, thinking about an oak tree that's about 50 years older than our country. If that tree could talk, said Wise, an Army veteran, military historian, and executive director with the South Carolina Battleground Preservation Trust, the stories it would tell. Situated near a two-story brick house that was a focal point in a Revolutionary War battle, the tree at Eutaw Springs Battlefield in South Carolina has borne witness to history. It was there during the September 8th, 1781 fight that was one of the war's final battles in the Palmetto State, a battle that set the stage for British General Charles Cornwallis' eventual surrender at Yorktown, Virginia, later that year. Despite claiming a tactical victory, the British suffered heavy losses from the American forces led by General Nathanael Greene and were effectively driven from the interior of the Carolinas. But age, the elements, and a lightning strike 50 years ago have taken their toll on what's now called the witness tree. In an ill-advised, if well-intentioned, long-ago effort to save the tree after the lightning strike, iron chains and steel support cables were wrapped around its trunk. But the tree kept growing, eventually swallowing the metal into its vascular system and, said abortist Aaron Landslaw of Save a Tree, choking off its ability to fully absorb vital nutrients. Now, Save a Tree is working to ensure the 300-year-old witness tree can survive at least another century, embarking on an effort to remove the old chains and supports, aerate the soil surrounding the tree, and make sure it's able to recover fully from any damage already inflicted and prevent any further harm. Landshaw, an Illinois native who's been an arborist for 15 years, said perhaps the most dangerous part of the job is removing the old cables, which requires workers to climb into the tree's canopy, which stretches more than 40 feet high and 50 yards across, while avoiding a scenario where the cables snap back at the workers. The cables, well-intentioned at the time, are now slowly killing it, he said. They've installed a lightning protection system so that if the tree is struck again, the current will run down into the soil around the tree and dissipate out. The soil at the tree's base was compacted, so workers also used what Landsaw described as a supersonic air tool to disperse the soil without harming the tree's roots. That, he explained, will help the tree better retain moisture and avoid runoff, and allows the roots to better absorb nutrients. It's a delicate surgical process, he explained. We've done a few trees of this size and age, but nothing that I know of with this sort of significance. This tree stood witness to a battle in the war that secured our freedom. There are similar oaks in the region that are estimated to be as old as 600 years, he said. We think we can get at least another couple hundred years of life for the witness tree. It's been a fun adventure for me and a history lesson. Doug Bostic, Wise's predecessor at the South Carolina Battleground Preservation Trust, first recognized the need to protect the site of the Battle of Eutaw Springs, Wise explained. As the trust acquired parcels around the site, Bostic noticed a really old tree on a parcel that the trust took control of in 2023. Bostic died later that year, however, and the trust's volunteers realized the tree was in distress. Working with the American Battlefield Trust, a nationwide nonprofit, the South Carolina group took down trees in imminent danger, but when they came to the old oak, no one really knew how old it was or whether it had any significance. An assessment found some lightning and other damage, and measurements pinned its age at around 300 to 350 years. My thought was this was sitting in the British camp, Wise said. We actually wondered how it survived the battle because they had cut down other trees for heat. We think maybe they kept it for the shade. But the bottom line is it was there. It witnessed all that happened. Wise, an Iraq war vet who holds a master's degree in military history and was awarded a Bronze Star, said he's glad the witness tree can be preserved. We can look at this tree and know it was actually part of this battle, he said. Folks always go to museums and they see artifacts, muskets, and bayonets, and uniforms and things, and they can tell the stories of a battle. But here is this living thing sitting right there within sight of where the action took place. It really touches a place in my patriotic heart, and I hope it does the same thing for everyone else who sees it.
3 days documenting an evolving response. A rare 911 Pentagon footage released after 25 years. Carissa Waddick of USA Today writes from Arlington, Virginia, "The first video captures the eerie, mundane moments of that morning. Through the windshield, visitors can see vehicles speeding by and then halting in bumper-to-bumper traffic along Interstate 66. A sign shows that they're about 5 miles from the Pentagon. Inside the car, somebody says, 'You can smell it.' On the morning of September 11th, 2001, Jude Koch and her 2 crew members, cameraman Billy DeWeese and firefighter Christopher DeWolf, were creating an emergency responder training video with the Baltimore City Fire Department when they learned of the attack at the Pentagon. They changed their mission and raced to the scene." Koch, DeWeese, and DeWolf embedded with the Arlington County Fire Department and for 3 days documented the evolving disaster response. They were the only civilian camera crew allowed near the burning building, according to Koch. 25 years later, some of their rare footage is being released to the American public. Koch partnered with the 911 Legacy Foundation, an education-focused nonprofit, to create a 6-part documentary covering what they witnessed. The series is the first of its kind. Since April, they've released the 3 to 7 minute videos once a month. On the timing, Koch said this year's anniversary provided the impetus to get the footage in front of the public. "This needs to happen. This needs to be preserved," Koch said. "This needs to be shared with the American people and the world." So what's in the footage? Now, the video showed search crews combing the Pentagon's charred corridors and interviews with firefighters working to contain the disaster. In some scenes, responders pick up pieces of American Airlines Flight 77. A police chaplain delivers a poignant prayer. Another clip shows service members recovering a red Marine Corps flag that stood untouched on the building's 4th floor, where the walls had collapsed. Koch used her team's story to guide people through the events, starting with how they ended up on the scene. Now, months earlier, Koch was laid off from a corporate video producing job. September 11 was her first day working with a production company on emergency training films. When they arrived at the Baltimore fire station, it was clear it wasn't going to be a normal day. All the leaders were huddled around a television watching news about the first attack at the World Trade Center. As the tragedy unfolded, Koch's boss urged the team to get as close as they could to the Pentagon. "I was already nervous about my first day," Koch remembered. "I don't think anything prepared me for that." Once on scene, the weight of their duty to history pushed them to stay, despite the dangers. "We were granted an immense responsibility to capture this event in the most responsible way we could. In the aftermath of that event, we could not control what happened to us, but we could control how we responded." When Koch arrived home to Texas after 9/11, she created an hour-long training video with the footage and then shoved the tapes into a cold, dark corner of her home. And there they collected dust for nearly 2 decades. As the 20th anniversary approached, Koch felt a nagging obligation to ensure the scenes that she and her teammates risked their lives for were preserved. A few calls with former colleagues revealed she possessed the only surviving set of recordings. Again, she felt the weight of stewardship. Short clips from the footage had appeared in a few documentaries, but the raw footage had not been digitized or given to historical institutions keeping the memory of 9/11 alive. Koch and her video crew's story also had never been told. She reached out to officials at the 911 Memorial and Museum in New York City to ensure they received copyright access to use the entire archive of footage. Then was put in contact with Chris Meek, founder of the 911 Legacy Foundation. He asked her to produce the film. Koch knew instantly which stories she wanted to tell. I've carried this with me for over 2 decades. Being there, it changed my life, Koch said. The footage, the human stories inside of it, have been within me. Now, although she hopes to eventually make a full-length documentary, Koch said she treated this project as the last way the film will be viewed. She hopes it will be used to educate the next generation and is working with the Pentagon Memorial Fund to officially house the footage at a planned visitor education center near a memorial honoring the victims. More than anything, she said, she hopes people see it and understand the fortitude of first responders after 9/11. We all have a choice, she said, to bring that light when darkness hits. You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 12:20.
2 die after explosions at recycling building. Owner of the Toledo site was fined for the AL fire. Excuse me. From Theo Nagayan of USA Today. 2 workers were killed after explosions in a large fire tore through an Ohio industrial recycling building early on August 18th, prompting a massive emergency response, according to officials. Firefighters were dispatched at around 4:50 a.m. local time after receiving 911 calls reporting an explosion and heavy fire at Brent Industries in Toledo, according to Toledo Fire and Rescue Chief Allison Armstrong. When crews arrived, Armstrong said they encountered heavy flames and smoke. Part of the building had already collapsed, the fire chief said at a news conference. Very challenging conditions for both the employees to evacuate and the fire and rescue department. Crews found the bodies of 2 employees, a man and a woman, inside the building hours later, according to Armstrong. 2 or 3 other employees sustained minor injuries and were treated at the scene. Toledo Mayor Wade Kaspuskowitz said a shift change was underway at the time of the explosions. The incident prompted an unusually large response because of the size of the structure, hazardous materials on site, and reports that workers were trapped inside the building, according to officials. By the afternoon, portions of the building were still burning and smoldering as firefighters worked to contain the fire and prevent it from spreading to nearby businesses and structures. Armstrong said dangerous conditions, including the risk of more explosions and structural collapse, complicated firefighters' efforts. The Toledo Fire and Rescue Department is working to determine the cause of the explosions. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency said it was notified of the incident through the National Response Center at around 9 a.m. local time and deployed personnel from Ann Arbor, Michigan, to assist with air monitoring and environmental assessments. When we arrived shortly after, the fire of the tanks was pretty much extinguished, EPA on-scene coordinator John Gulch said at the news conference. Air monitoring detected no hazardous levels of contaminants, indicating no immediate threat to the surrounding community, according to Gulch. Brent Industries, which is based in Brent, Alabama, provides textile reconditioning and industrial recycling services to help companies reduce waste and save money, according to its website. The company was founded in 1977 and operates in Brent and Toledo. In 2015, 1 worker was killed and several others were injured after explosions and a fire occurred at the company's Alabama manufacturing plant, reported the Tuscaloosa News, part of the USA Today network. Investigators with the Occupational Safety and Health Administration found the explosion occurred in an industrial laundering and dry cleaning operation, according to records. The agency subsequently cited Brent Industries for 9 serious workplace safety violations involving flammable liquids, hazard communication, exit routes, and protective equipment. It issued a fine that was later reduced to $27,300, according to records. USA Today reached out to Brent Industries and OSHA for comment.
Kent eyes a MAGA rebellion over the Iran war. Conservatives fuel growing opposition. Zach Anderson of USA Today writes, President Donald Trump led an insurgent takeover of the Republican Party. Now, one prominent MAGA dissident believes conservative critics of the Iran war could use the same playbook. After resigning from the Trump administration over his opposition to the administration over the conflict, Joe Kent has been exploring how to channel anti-war sentiment into political action. Trump led the MAGA movement astray with the war, he said. War critics could take a lesson from the president and hijack the GOP, he told USA Today in an interview. We know we have something here in terms of political energy, Kent said. We know that people are frustrated. Now, he's at the center of a growing MAGA backlash to the war, which has sparked outrage among some of the right who believe the conflict clashes with Trump's campaign pledge to avoid foreign military entanglements. He met with other prominent MAGA war dissenters last month to plot their next steps. Now, it's unclear how deep the appetite is for a GOP reckoning on Iran. A recent AP NORC survey found most Republicans still back Trump on the conflict, but that support has slipped. Kent said the war could have lasting political repercussions. A gathering he attended at the main home of conservative media personality Tucker Carlson fueled speculation about a new political movement centered around conservative criticism of the war. The meeting included Representative Thomas Massie, representative from Kentucky, and former Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, who resigned from her position this year and said she no longer supports the Republican Party. Massie, Greene, and Carlson all have clashed with Trump on Iran. Greene posted a photo on social media afterward with the caption, "The movement has begun." Now, he shared details of the confab, saying an anti-war political coalition could be a force in future elections and offering different scenarios for the shape it might take, while noting it's still in the early stages. We still have to just flesh out what this coalition is all about, he said. Kent joined the Trump administration last year. He was the director of the U.S. National Counterterrorism Center. An Army veteran, close ally of former Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, another military veteran who has embraced MAGA non-intervention, Kent said he was drawn to the president by his foreign policy platform. He resigned from the administration March 17, fewer than 3 weeks into the war. In his resignation letter, Kent wrote about his 11 combat deployments, losing his wife, who was killed by a suicide bomber while serving with the Navy in Syria. He told Trump he opposed sending the next generation off to fight and die in a war that serves no benefit to the American people, nor does it justify the cost of American lives. There have been 18 U.S. service members killed in the war so far, and concerns about troop morale amid complaints about living conditions on the USS Abraham Lincoln. 5 months after resigning, Kent is continuing to press his case publicly while taking tentative steps to organize politically. He told USA Today that the president is too focused on a formal peace deal and should simply walk away. There's no military solution, Kent said. If there was one, he just would simply execute it. The White House responded by calling Kent a quitter. President Trump has destroyed nearly all of Iran's military capabilities and is crushing what's left of its abysmal economy with the most powerful naval blockade in world history, White House spokesman Davis Ingalls said in a statement. In quitter Joe Kent's twisted mind, that somehow means Iran is winning. Now, Trump told reporters after Kent's resignation, yeah, I always thought he was a nice guy, but I always thought he was weak on security, very, very weak on security. Now, Trump has struggled to end the war. He announced a peace deal in June. It quickly fell apart amid jockeying over the Strait of Hormuz. Now, it's a vital waterway for oil shipments. Iran has continued to threaten shipping in the strait. Trump said August 18 that the U.S. is not engaged in talks with Iran amid an ongoing naval blockade, suggesting a stalemate. The unpopular war is shadowing the 2026 midterm elections. And it's hurting Trump's approval rating and threatening to drag down his party as it seeks to maintain control of Congress. Just 39% of voters approve of Trump's job performance in the Real Clear Politics average of recent polls. You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 12:30. And continuing, but Kent said the political fallout could extend further, with the war continuing to be a potent issue in the 2028 presidential contest. Now, he and other MAGA war critics are looking ahead and plotting how to influence future elections. Massey, Green, and Carlson also were among the first wave of prominent MAGA figures opposing the war, a group that has been growing as the conflict nears the 6-month mark. Kent said that the four have been in regular contact through phone calls and text. Carlson eventually suggested the in-person meeting at his house. The main gathering was just kind of putting our heads together, like, what do we think the future is, Kent said. The MAGA rebels agreed that the GOP establishment has failed. Where they go next remains to be seen. Carlson and Green have talked about backing a new political party amid their criticism of Trump. Yet while everyone gathered around Carlson's wooden table liked the idea of a third party, Kent said, he noted there are significant hurdles to getting a new party on the ballot. He spoke with individuals involved in the Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s 2024 independent presidential bid, who talked about the challenges and the expense of getting ballot access in all 50 states. I don't know how viable the third-party independent lane actually is, according to Kent. Now, instead, he pointed to the Trump model in floating the idea of trying to hijack the Republican Party. He also suggested that an existing third party, like the Libertarian, could serve as a vehicle to channel a coalition of voters who oppose foreign conflicts and want to focus on domestic needs. Those scenarios would require unifying behind an anti-war candidate, but nobody at Carlson's house was eager to be that person, Kent said. We all kind of did the, 1, 2, 3, not it, he said. Carlson was a hard no, Kent said, while Green ruled out running in an interview with Politico. After twice losing races for Congress in Washington state against Democrat Marie Gluesenkamp Perez, Kent said, I got that out of my system. I won't be a candidate again. Kent's campaigns generated controversy. The Associated Press reported in 2022 on his ties to right-wing extremists, which Democrats pointed to in opposing his nomination to lead the National Counterterrorism Center. Well, whoever runs, Kent suggested there could be an effort to reset the Republican Party on foreign policy in the 2028 presidential primary. Vice President Vance is a likely contender for the party's nomination, but Kent said he could face a credibility problem after serving in an administration that launched a new war despite Trump campaigning against foreign entanglements. It's going to be hard to go to the 77 million voters who voted for Trump, who are probably going to be mad and feel a certain degree of betrayal and say, yeah, I was part of that, but trust me, it's going to be different this time. I just think it's going to be really, really hard, Kent said. Now, Vance has been a skeptic of American military intervention abroad and Trump said his vice president was less enthusiastic about launching the Iran war. He has since defended the conflict, although while working to negotiate its end. He led negotiations on a peace deal that eventually collapsed.
Moving on to the money section of USA Today, Treasury gives Trump-owned crypto firm a bank charter. From Aaron Mansfield. The cryptocurrency company that made President Trump nearly $800 million since he returned to the White House has received the green light to become a bank and potentially make him even more money. World Liberty Trust Company received conditional approval from the Treasury Department on August the 14th to become a bank. The approval specifically gives World Liberty the right to issue a type of cryptocurrency called stablecoin, which is tied to the U.S. dollar. Our ambition is clear: to build the most trusted and widely used digital dollar in the world while strengthening the role of the U.S. dollar across the global economy, Zach Witkoff, Chief Executive Officer of World Liberty Financial, wrote in a social media statement. Trump and his sons co-founded World Liberty Financial, and the company brought in nearly $800 million for Trump in 2025, according to his financial disclosure. The Trump administration advertises the company on its website. Additionally, Zach Witkoff is the son of diplomat Steve Witkoff, a key foreign policy figure in the Trump administration. Senator Elizabeth Warren, a Democrat from Massachusetts, called the charter approval the most brazen act of self-dealing our financial system has ever seen, and said she would introduce a bill to stop this kind of unprecedented corruption. Anna Kelly, a spokesperson for the White House, said in a statement, all of President Trump's investment holdings are held in fully discretionary accounts managed by independent third-party financial institutions. This is the same tired narrative that Democrats have pushed against Trump, his family, and his administration for a decade. Many of Trump's policies since taking office have benefited the crypto industry, including implementing federal rules for stablecoins, which is what World Liberty Financial will now be able to issue, and dialing back how much the Justice Department and Securities and Exchange Commission police the industry. A charter makes it easier for you to support customers and provide new services, said Christian Catalini, founder of the MIT Crypto Economics Lab. He said World Liberty Financial represents part of a backlog of crypto companies seeking to operate as banks and now getting approval under the Trump administration. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who was appointed by Trump, wrote on social media August 17th that his department is working to provide the regulatory certainty businesses need to innovate and grow in America, cement the role of U.S. dollars as the world's reserve currency, and keep America the crypto capital of the world. The Treasury Department did not comment in response to USA Today's inquiry about the chartering process or potential ethical implications, but the approval from the Office of Comptroller of Currency describes public comments that claim there could be conflicts of interest because Trump appointed the controller. The controller and staff acted consistently with their legal duties and ethical obligations with respect to the application, the letter says. It further says that career staff, not the controller himself, supervise and enforce laws related to banks such as World Liberty Financial. In a statement, David Waxman, a spokesperson for World Liberty Financial, pointed to language in the preliminary conditional approval letter designed to keep the Trump-owned family company that owns a stake in World Liberty Financial separate from banking operations. In plain English, it requires the Trump family entity to remain separate from the trust company's operations and prevents it from influencing how the company is run, according to Waxman. These safeguards were included specifically to avoid even the appearance of a conflict of interest. The charter is preliminary and requires the company to notify the Office of Comptroller of Currency of any major business plan changes, maintain at least $20 million in capital, and hire an internal audit manager. Critics are missing the point. World Liberty Financial is embracing regulation, not avoiding it, Waxman said. A national charter would place World Liberty Trust Company under permanent federal oversight, well beyond the Trump administration. Catalini, who generally supports regulating crypto more similar to banks, said a future Democratic president could choose to appoint someone who regulates the company differently. Being regulated as a bank is not a joke, he said. I think in the long run this is going to be a net benefit for society.
Blowing through budgets. The income that you need to afford daycare in your state. Anthony Thompson of USA Today writes, for many U.S. families, paying for childcare can take a significant bite out of the household budget. A new Consumer Affairs analysis found families nationwide could need to earn about $205,000 a year for full-time, center-based toddler care to meet a federal affordability benchmark. So that figure is more than twice the 2024 median family income of $99,999. Nationwide average toddler care costs account for 14.3% of median family income. That's more than double the 7% affordability benchmark previously established by the United States Department of Health and Human Services. Now, high child care costs can affect more than household budgets. Experts told Consumer Affairs families may respond by cutting other expenses, having fewer children, or leaving the workforce. The system may appear more functional than it is because families are absorbing much of the instability themselves. Brittany Walsh, Senior Associate Director at the Bipartisan Policy Center, told Consumer Affairs. So, where daycare is more expensive? Now, Massachusetts tops the list, with families needing an estimated $349,543 in annual household income for toddler care just to meet the 7% benchmark. Full-time care, average $24,468 a year. That's basically $2,039 a month. Vermont ranks second at $294,586 in required income, followed by Oregon at $293,814, Washington at $293,486, and Hawaii at $283,314. Oregon has the highest child care costs relative to the state's median family income. Average toddler care consumes 20.1% of median family income in the state. So that means a typical household would need to nearly triple its income just for care to reach the 7% threshold. Well, after all that, where is daycare less expensive? Mississippi has the lowest estimated income needed to afford toddler care at $92,743. But that's still nearly $20,000 higher than the state's median family income of $73,163. West Virginia ranks second lowest at $121,986, followed by Alabama at $123,514, South Dakota $126,557, and Arkansas $127,614. Now, Mississippi also has the lowest average annual toddler care cost in the analysis at $6,492. Even so, that represents 8.9% of median family income, showing that lower child care prices do not necessarily make care affordable for the typical household. Now, child care can also cost more than other major household expenses. Consumer Affairs found annual toddler care costs more than average in-state tuition at a four-year public college in 37 states. Nationally, toddler care costs about 35% more average in-state public college tuition. Child care costs are lower than median mortgages and rent payments in most states. The analysis used 2025 state averages for full-time center-based toddler care from Child Care Aware of America Consumer Affairs calculated the income needed for, wow, that thing is running on, needed for care to represent 7% of household income by dividing each state's annual child care costs by 0.07%. Now, New Mexico was excluded because it had began offering universal no-cost child care late 2025. Colorado and South Carolina did not report 2025 child care costs, so their figures were estimated using the national year-over-year charge in child care costs. And the bottom line is, don't have kids. Get a hamster.
From the experts, Economic Fix can help SSI. Policies that strengthen wages workers can help. From Medora Lee of the USA Today Network. It's the economy, stupid. Political strategist James Carville coined that phrase during Bill Clinton's 1992 presidential run against George H.W. Bush.
You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 12:46.
Continuing, the phrase was to remind Democrats to focus on pocketbook issues, but some analysts said that logic can also be applied to keep Social Security afloat. The trust fund that supplements incoming payroll taxes to pay monthly Social Security benefits is expected to run dry by the end of 2032, according to the program's trustees. When that happens, the law requires benefits to be reduced by an estimated 22% to ensure the program's costs do not exceed its revenues. While Congress has yet to raise taxes, cut benefits, or do both to keep affording payouts as population growth slows, some economists say the strongest Social Security reforms may not look like Social Security policy at all. Instead, they say Congress should shift its focus to managing the economy better to encourage more Americans to work and earn. Social Security is a reflection of and is supported by the strength of the economy, said economist and Social Security expert Catherine Ann Edwards at center-left think tank Roosevelt Institute. Who is working, how much they earn, how healthy they are, and how much they save matter more than the head count. People could live longer, have fewer kids, and have a solvent Social Security if workers earned enough money. Now, why is Social Security facing cuts, and what are the current ideas to boost it? Social Security is financed through a dedicated payroll tax. Employers and employees each pay 6.2% of wages up to $184,500 in 2026, while the self-employed pay 12.4%. Now that the large baby boom generation is retiring and collecting Social Security, and population growth has slowed, there are not enough workers and payroll taxes to fully fund the benefits. That has resulted in the program dipping into its trust fund to make up for the shortfall and running down the balance. Many politicians, including Senator Elizabeth Warren, Democrat from Massachusetts, Senator Bernie Sanders, Independent from Vermont, and Senator Bernie Moreno, Republican from Ohio, support raising or eliminating the wage cap for the payroll tax to extend Social Security solvency. Others have suggested raising the full retirement age from 67 years, increasing the payroll tax rate, or capping the annual cost of living adjustments. Now, why aren't those ideas good enough? People see Social Security as the inexorable result of demographics, Edwards says. This view stems from an understanding Social Security is basically a pyramid scheme. Workers pay in, retirees get out, so the ratio between them underpins the program's stability. People live longer and have fewer kids, ergo, Social Security is running out of money. That's a one-dimensional view of a multi-dimensional problem. Instead, Social Security depends more on the underlying strength of the economy and how well it is managed, analysts have said. Policies that strengthen the economy, encourage more people to work, and enable people to earn higher wages are better options to boost Social Security. What kind of policies could help? Policies that strengthen the labor economy and increase wages and the number of workers would automatically translate into more money for Social Security, according to Edwards. Some examples of policies that she said could help include, first, basic changes in labor regulations, such as paid sick days, paid family and medical leave, and the right to work part-time, as well as infrastructure investments, including universal free child care, have been shown to increase the labor force participation of parents, particularly mothers. Next, raising wages through such policies as a higher minimum wage and stronger collective bargaining would strengthen the program's finances, not just workers' paychecks. Wage inequality has contributed to Social Security's erosion. Comprehensive immigration reform also directly affects the number of workers paying into the system. Immigration increases the number of workers and payroll taxes, even if the immigrants are not authorized. Changing Social Security rules, such as the spousal benefit and the work penalty. Currently, partners married for at least a decade are eligible for the higher of two benefits, one based on their highest 35 years of earnings, or one that is half of their partner's benefit, which is based on the partner's highest 35 years of earnings. Spouses who never worked and those who worked but with gaps for parent or child caregiving may both end up with half their partner's benefit, despite work history differences. Social Security reduces benefits for the retirees who claim before reaching full retirement age and imposes a retirement earnings test that reduces benefits further for those who earn more than $24,480 annually, with benefit amounts lowered by $1 for every $2 earned above that cap. The retirement earnings test was passed during the Great Depression, specifically to push older Americans out of the workforce and free up more jobs for younger Americans, Senator Rick Scott, Republican of Florida, said in a March statement introducing a bill to repeal it. But as we are all aware, it's not the 1930s anymore. Other work-family policies could include eliminating benefit cliffs, said Stephen Roll, assistant professor in the Brown School at Washington University in St. Louis, Missouri. Benefit cliffs are when government benefits programs create difficult trade-offs for low-wage workers. Workers often must choose between earnings or saving more and losing eligibility for or facing reductions in food, health care, housing, and child care assistance that are worth more than any added income. These policy design choices may place workers in a position where taking a raise, accepting more hours, or building emergency savings could make them worse off financially, according to Roll. The government could consider, for example, gradually reducing benefits as earnings rise, rather than allowing a relatively small raise to produce a much larger loss in assistance, he said. The simple idea here is that people should always be better off financially when they earn more. According to Roll, these cliffs make it so an individual could lose thousands of dollars in benefits if they take a 50-cent an hour raise. Programs with these cliffs should instead shift to phase-out structures like the Earned Income Tax Credit to avoid these major work disincentives. Although Roll doesn't tie his benefit cliffs analysis to Social Security insolvency issues, other economists say any policies to encourage work and higher wages would inevitably help. What about AI's effect on labor? So far, studies show artificial intelligence has mostly cut employment, 16%, for early career workers in occupations most exposed to AI, such as software development and customer support, according to a 2025 Stanford report. But Philip Deal, former U.S. Mint director during the Clinton administration and president of gold and precious metals dealer U.S. Money Reserve, said he expects AI to take a bigger toll in coming years than that will hit Social Security. There's a painful transition coming during which new jobs will be created at a slower pace and require new skill sets that the older generation doesn't have, he said. These older employees who don't make the transition will retire earlier and take benefits, which has immediate effect on Social Security. Then there's to what extent AI will reduce jobs and reduce pay for jobs. There is some evidence of reduced pay for jobs more exposed to AI. Lower wages mean less money to tax for Social Security. None of these factors are reflected in the latest estimates for Social Security insolvency, he said. That means insolvency could come even sooner than 2032. To prepare for that, Deal said Congress should start working on a plan to move funding from labor to capital, taxing wealth, assets, and income at a higher level, he said. Government could also begin preparing the workforce for AI disruption. Edwards has said this. AI's impact is determined by the extent to which policymakers help affected workers re-enter the workforce. That has less to do with technology and more with policymakers' ability and effectiveness. The biggest threat to Social Security is mismanaging the economy, Edwards has said.
Corporate boards are taking a page from Elon Musk. Ross Kerber of Reuters says, extraordinary corporate compensation deals for Elon Musk have opened the door for the CEOs of other S&P 500 companies to win huge paydays, a new study shows. Even excluding the CEO of Tesla and SpaceX, average compensation for chief executives in the S&P 500 soared 21% to $22.8 million last year, according to data to be released later on August 20th by the American Federation of Labor and Congress of Industrial Organizations. That is the highest amount since the top U.S. Labor Federation began tracking the figures in the 1990s. Driving the gains was an increasing number of mega pay plans inspired by Musk's compensation deal at Tesla. That's worth as much as $1 trillion if he hits all possible targets, according to labor officials. Shareholders for the electric vehicle maker last November approved a restricted stock plan that the company valued at $158 billion. Including that figure, average S&P 500 CEO pay reached $340.1 million last year. That's according to this year's edition of the AFL-CIO's widely followed PayWatch study. Musk also became the world's first trillionaire based on his stake in satellite and artificial intelligence company SpaceX. You're listening to a reading of articles from USA Today on Thursday, August the 20th, 2026, on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We will return for more readings after the short break. Your readers are
Jim Duffy
and Ken Drost.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you.
continue now with our reading of articles from today's issue of USA Today. Your readers are
Ken Drost.
and Jim Duffy. And turning to our sports page, PGA Tour playoffs lacking real drama, from Adam Schupak of Golf Week and the USA Today Network. Ryan Gerard is on the verge of completing his top goal for the season, something he's never accomplished on the PGA Tour. Gerard, who is 27, enters the BMW Championship ranked number 17 in the season-long FedEx Cup points race and looks to be a lock to finish in the top 30. That would punch his ticket to the Tour Championship at East Lake Golf Club in Atlanta. That's my white whale, he said. I told myself if I got to East Lake, it'd be a successful season. That's the barometer. It gets you in all the majors. A 2-year exemption, and it means you've had a solid season. Then I'll go to Atlanta and see if I can make some extra birdies and see what happens. The 50-man field at Belle Rive Country Club will be whittled to 30 this week, and golf fans can only hope that there will be more drama and tension than last week's snoozer at the first playoff stop, the FedEx St. Jude Championship. There's no stopping Scotty Scheffler when his putter is the best in the field, and he won last week by 8 strokes, at the most this season on the PGA Tour. But the tournament within the tournament, the cut from 70 to 50 for this week's BMW Championship that begins August 20th, had even less juice. Sure, golf fans got to watch Keith Mitchell, number 49, at the start of the week, and Jordan Spieth, number 52, tighten up under the pressure and come up empty in their desperate pursuit for one last birdie. But only one player, Sun Jae Im, moved from outside to inside the top 50, which meant only one fell out. The PGA Tour reduced the volatility out of the first 2 legs of the playoffs by reducing the point totals. Instead of 2,000 FedEx Cup points being awarded to the winner, Scheffler earned 750, the same as the Players' Championship. The Tour also abandoned the starting strokes format at the Tour Championship, which had been instituted in 2019 and gave FedEx Cup leaders a head start in the finale. Now, the last event of the season is a 72-hole stroke play event with all players starting the tournament at even par. The best performer over the course of 4 rounds at the Tour Championship wins the FedEx Cup and the largest purse of the season, $10 million. It was a step in the right direction. The Tour's argument for the change is that a player's regular season shouldn't be easily validated by a 1-week wonder or one lackluster week during the playoffs. Last year, with jacked up points available in the first 2 playoff events, 5 players moved into the top 50 with their performance at the St. Jude. But that is the essence of playoffs in other sports. Great seasons game earn a first-round bye or home field advantage, but there's no guarantee that the top team makes the World Series or the Super Bowl. The reduction in point value removed the consequences of playing poorly. Last week, Saith Theegala finished 67th in a field of 68. There were 2 withdrawals, and dropped 2 spots and didn't have to sweat out falling from the top 50. Rory McIlroy, he finished 66th and dropped from number 12 to 13. Last year, McIlroy realized he didn't need to play in Memphis and skipped the event. This time, he admitted he showed up unprepared after a long layoff. It was his first event since the Open Championship in mid-July, and was a non-factor. Same could be said for Ashleigh Hatia, who was dead last in Memphis and fell from number 14 to 15. British Open champ Ryan Fox finished tied for 58th, but advanced easily, slipping 4 spots to number 25. Then there's Robert McIntyre, who withdrew after a first-round 82. He tumbled down the standings, right? Not really. He slipped from number 31 to 36. In all, 42 of the players were mathematically guaranteed to play in the BMW, regardless of how they finished. There should be more punishment for stinking up the joint at TPC Southwind. Otherwise, this isn't a playoff. It's a money grab, and the Tour Championship becomes a glorified version of the Hero World Challenge, the 20-man hit and giggle in December, where everyone gets world ranking points. While much is on the line at the BMW Championship, from determining the top 30, who advance to the East Lake next week to potential Masters invites and the top 6 automatic qualifiers for the U.S. President's Cup team, don't expect much volatility in the FedEx Cup points list. If you want real excitement this time of year, it's on the Korn Ferry Tour, the PGA Tour's top developmental circuit, where careers are on the line. The Tour Championship, only 2 players moved up into the top 30 after Memphis, with Bud Cauley, 34th to 29th, and Kurt Kitayama, 33rd to 28th, pushing out Gary Woodland, 31st to 20 from 27th, and JT Potson, 32nd from 30th. Ricky Fowler is the bubble boy at the start of this week at number 30. 20 years ago into the FedEx Cup playoffs, and it's been an endless game of whack-a-mole. Fix one flaw and expose another. The Tour has said the 2028 playoffs will be decidedly different, with greater emphasis on highlighting the regular season champ and with the introduction of match play to spice things up. That cannot come soon enough.
An exclusive. Cunningham wants more game talk. Megan L. Hall of USA Today writes, Indiana Fever guard Sophie Cunningham is signing autographs for a sea of screaming fans ahead of a matchup against the Atlantic Dream, August 16th. Sophie, 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 they shout, hanging over the railing at State Farm Arena with outstretched arms. Cunningham has a mountain of items waiting for her signature. A jersey, a deflated basketball, a pair of her Adidas Crazy Energy Sophie Cunningham PE shoes. Those sold out July 24th, the same day they debuted. Cunningham's popularity has skyrocketed this season amid a national conversation about transgender athlete inclusion. The WNBA veteran made comments in a July ESPN story about protecting women's sports by banning transgender females from participating in leagues for girls and women. Since the interview was published, support Sophie Cunningham demonstrations have become commonplace outside Fever games. Conversations surrounding Cunningham and the WNBA's policy regarding transgender athletes also intensified, prompting her to ask for the focus on the WNBA to return to basketball. People are like, you have a platform, use it. And then once you use it, it's like go back to playing basketball. I think the reason why I stated that is because you go into media and it's not anything even about basketball. I think I could do both, Cunningham told USA Today Sports. Ask me about what's going on and what I said. And also ask me how great my teammates are doing, how great our team is doing, and how great the league is doing. We can be a great example of how to do both. Cunningham and the Fever have pressed on during the ongoing chatter, amassing a 24-12 record, including 5 straight wins. The Fever guard is second in the WNBA in three-point shooting percentages at 44.5%, while her teammate Kelsey Mitchell is fourth at 43.7%. Mitchell, who is second in points per game at 24.2 in the WNBA, is also in the middle of a record-breaking streak of 20 games, scoring 20 points or more. Caitlin Clark, who's averaging a career high in points, 22 per game, and field goal percentage, 45%, won Player of the Week for the 4th time this season, August 18th. Fever forward Aaliyah Boston is nearly averaging a double-double, 17 points and 8.7 rebounds. Cunningham told USA Today she's used to the noise around the Fever because it's been there since last year. For her, the goal remains the same: protect our locker room and highlight the high-level basketball the Fever are playing. For as much as the Missouri native would like to shine a light on basketball, the conversations around her comments remain. I think the most important thing is just trying to lead by example. Look, it's really challenging, I think, for our team to silence it. You can't silence it, Fever coach Stephanie White said. For us, it's how do we minimize it? How do we use it in a way that brings us closer together? How do we use it in a way that helps us grow, not just on the floor, but off the floor, to become a better basketball team, become better human beings, better teammates, better friends, better allies? I think there's all of these things and different ways that we can minimize it to help us grow. On August 17, the Women's National Basketball Association distanced itself from an RWNBA fan subreddit in the middle of the controversy for appearing to ban mention of Cunningham's name. The WNBA does not moderate or have any affiliation with the RWNBA subreddit, a league spokesperson told USA Today. The subreddit posted a clarification regarding the use of Cunningham's name in the online conversation platform, saying content related to the Fever guard was not banned. Posts about Sophie are welcome when they are related to basketball, including games, highlights, interviews, statistics, marketing endorsements, and other WNBA-related news. Off the court, Sophie content can be shared as well, the statement said. On August 16th, Cunningham fans who attended the Fever versus Dream matchup said that they were made to cover up their T-shirts by league security staff at State Farm Arena. Video captured inside the arena and posted on social media shows a mother and daughter covering up their XXXY Athletics branded shirts with shirts provided by the Dream. In a statement provided to USA Today Sports, the WNBA said the fans should not have been made to cover their clothing. The WNBA is aware of interactions at last night's game in Atlanta in which fans were asked by league security to cover their shirts. This should not have happened. The XXXY Athletics, which bills itself as a brand here to protect women's sports and spaces, was founded by former gymnast and former Levi Strauss Chief Marketing Officer Jennifer Say. XX-XY has also been part of rallies around WNBA games this season in support of Sophie Cunningham. Now, her comments on transgender athlete participation and the ensuing conversation came up after the U.S. Supreme Court upheld states' rights to ban transgender females from participation in women's sports. There's not been an openly transgender player in WNBA history. It's sort of surprising to be the headline, and I would say the only reason we are is because people who have been censored by the leagues, they tend to be censored when they're wearing our product. Say, the XXXY founder told USA Today Sports. Obviously, I didn't make that happen. I don't think anybody should be censored at the games. People can wear whatever shirt they want. I'm hearing now that, I saw it on Tuesday, outlets are reporting that several people wearing Trans Kids Belong shirts were told to cover them up. I don't think that should happen either. None of these shirts are violent or mean. They express a belief. We may not agree, and that's fine. I think everybody should get to wear what they want. And I think the league is making a mistake by attempting to censor anybody. When USA Today spoke to Cunningham, she acknowledged WNBA leadership and the league have been under a high amount of scrutiny this season, and the spotlight is only intensified as the debate around transgender athletes continues. Cunningham said anyone in a position of power has a challenging job, but she believes new leadership might help the WNBA. She said the league is changing, and as players have an opportunity to be trailblazers of what women's league could look like, it needs leaders who support that growth. you do have to have a person in power who is bold, confident, and who wants the best for the players, and not maybe for themselves all the time. So I do feel, as a whole, that could be a position that's maybe open at the end of the year. But that's not my call, Cunningham said. Kathy Engelberts has done a lot of good things, but with where our league is trying to go, I feel like you just want somebody who also wants that. It's just a hard position to be in her shoes, for even us as players. We always want more, because we see how good it can be. But it's up to Adam Silver at the end of the day. Now, Cunningham in the Fever season continues in Dallas against Paige Buckers and the Wings on Thursday, August the 20th. While Cunningham doesn't plan to change how she operates, she told USA Today she understands the weight of her words.
You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 1:15.
And continuing, Cunningham said, when you do have so many eyes on you that people can use your words for the positive, people can weaponize your words. So that's just how people are. It's just human nature. It's not going to make me dim my light anymore, Cunningham said. I try to just show people love and try to go that route. And when people actually talk to me in person, I think they feel that. And our arms wide open. I can't control how other people do stuff. But I do think that you just always have to see how your words can maybe be interpreted by other people. But at the end of the day, if you're constantly doing that, you're going to lose yourself. So I just try to control what I can control.
Wild, yes, but inspirational. The college football story that sounds ridiculous until you hear the whole truth. From Jordan Mendoza of USA Today. Just as Bobby Kennedy arrived as a Stanford assistant in 2018, he knew of a highly touted recruit out of vaunted South California, powerhouse Mater D, who is named Solomon Tuliaupupu. As a receivers coach, Kennedy didn't think much of the linebacker, other than knowing he played a role in the Monarchs' undefeated national championship season in 2017. The coach spent 4 seasons at Stanford, took a year off coaching, and spent a season at Rice in 2024. Excuse me. He arrived at Montana last season and was promoted for 2026. And in his first season as a head coach, who will he have on his team? Well, none other than that SoCal recruit all those years ago. In an era of college sports when it seems like player eligibility is unlimited, no one may exemplify it like Tuliaupupu, who enters his ninth season of college football. To casual football fans, it's a preposterous headline. There were plenty of people up in arms when he received his 9th season of eligibility in February. Why would someone in the same recruiting class as Trevor Lawrence, Micah Parsons, Jamar Chase, and graduate high school with Amon-Ra St. Brown still be playing college football this year? It sounds ridiculous, yet it's anything but to the 26-year-old. I totally understand how some people could be frustrated about just hearing my story without having all the context to clues, he told USA Today Sports. To Tuliaupupu, a 9th season represents overcoming a long, painful road, one that nearly made him walk away from the game he loves multiple times. Did he want to go like this? No, but he doesn't regret any part of the journey. It's a special story, Kennedy said. Tuliaupupu had his future mapped out perfectly in high school. He was going to play college ball for 3 seasons and make it to the NFL. He had the tools to do so as a number 54 overall recruit in the 2018 class and the 2017 USA Today All-USA National Defensive Player of the Year. However, that plan got off course before high school finished. After no injury history, he twisted his left ankle in fall camp of his senior year and did it again during the season. Painful, but still powering through as he tried to finish the season. Then came the playoff semifinal against Mission Viejo when he suffered a left Lindsfrank tear. He wanted to play on it, but recalled doctors telling him doing so would do irreversible damage to your whole foot. Tagliapuppu decided to have the reconstructive surgery, and in January 2018, he lived the dream of committing to the Trojans. The start to that, though, was disrupted. There were risks of the surgery not being entirely successful, and it ended up not working. His first summer at USC was spent doing rehab, and he eventually got put in an immobile cast that meant sitting out all of his first year. Tagliapuppu was on the field in spring of 2019 when he had another Lindsfrank tear. This one wasn't as severe, but he was again told surgery was needed or he faced the same possible consequences. A fusion was done so he wouldn't have to worry about tearing it again, but this meant another boot, another instance of limited mobility. If you add that together, it's like over a year of not using your foot, he said. 2 seasons down the drain, but there was optimism in 2020. He was ready for spring ball until COVID lockdowns halted that. Given how turbulent the Pac-12's football plans were that year, USC did not start fall practice until October. Tagliapuppu was feeling strong going into it, and in the first week he was doing a drill where he planted his foot and he didn't feel his left foot give out. Instead, it was his left knee. He tore his anterior cruciate ligament, a 3rd straight season not playing. At that point, I'm like, all right, what the heck is happening with my body? Tagliapuppu said. I don't know what's going on. It was 2021 when he was finally ready to play, and he awaited a debut against Stanford, expecting to be on the special teams unit. That didn't happen, and just his luck, it wasn't long before his left knee started to feel funny again. He met with medical professionals, and they advised him to focus on recovery to figure out what's going on. The plan of 3 years in the NFL turned into 4 years, and injured for all of it. That season was when Clay Helton was fired from USC, and in November, Lincoln Riley came in to lead the Trojans. He and his incoming staff did player evaluations on the roster, and Tagliapuppu's history was hard to ignore. He was cut. I kept calling him, he said. I was like, hey, please give me a shot. Just give me a shot. I feel like I haven't even got a shot in my college career yet. After persisting, Tagliapuppu was given a spring tryout. He proved he belonged, earning his spot on the roster. He was again ready to go for the season, and this time he actually did it. Switching to defensive line, Tagliapuppu appeared in all 14 games for the Trojans en route to a Cotton Bowl appearance. Not even a torn biceps late in the season stopped him. The momentum of the first full season carried Tagliapuppu into earning a starting spot going into the fall camp of 2023. He was eager for an expanded role, but during a preseason practice he planted his foot and again felt something wrong. It was his right knee. He tore the other ACL. Another season gone before it begins. Even with all the pain before, this one was different. In 5 years, injuries derailed 4 of them. Family and friends were constantly asking if he was sure he still wanted to play. He'd treat them like they were crazy, telling them of course he still wants to be on the field. He'd puff his chest out and let everyone know he was built for this. But inside, Tagliapuppu was struggling. He did wonder if football was really meant for him. I don't know if this is for me, he recalled. There's nights I just stay up and cry, and I go lift some weights to feel better. Then I'd want to feel sad again. Start crying again, and just go lift some more weights. Support from family didn't waver, specifically from his wife Olivia. She was in his corner every time doubt crept in. They also were expecting their first child. The 2024 season arrived, and Tagliapuppu was good, not missing a beat from the jump. However, the day after USC played Nebraska, he got sick, and it got pretty bad. He had influenza A, resulting in high fevers and losing 20 pounds in a quick span. Anytime he tried doing any physical work, he was throwing up, and he missed the rest of the season. It was worse trying to help care for his newborn baby. That sickness really scared me, Tagliapuppu said. I never felt that sick before. I thought I was going to die. I was mad. By the time he recovered, He walked into Riley's office and told him it was time to retire. He thanked him for letting him continue his dream of being a Trojan, but he didn't think he had anything left in him. Not only did he retire, he was actually hunting for a job to support his family. However, a few months later, Taliapupu realized he had an extra year of eligibility. After the NCAA confirmed it, he sat down with Olivia and decided to enter the transfer portal, seeing if anyone would offer. The initial process was rough. A true linebacker who turned into a defensive end, he wanted to go back to his old position, but schools were only offering him at the edge. Each time he expressed that to potential suitors, talks fell through. There weren't any leads until Montana, whose coaches told him he could play linebacker. That's all it took for him to move from Southern California to Missoula. In his first year with the Grizzlies, Taliapupu had his best season with 43 tackles, 2 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles, earning second team All-Big Sky. He played in 14 of Montana's 15 games, on its way to a football championship subdivision semifinal appearance, only missing 1 game to help care for his wife after her dad died, something he had no hesitation doing. That wouldn't be the end of it. Around the 2025 postseason, Taliapupu said Montana staff members said they could maybe get him a 9th year. He didn't even realize it was possible. I expletive you not. I was like tearing up, he said. I was like, dude, I've been looking for jobs, and I was getting a lot of interest from jobs. If you guys can give me another year, I will play. I'll play however many extra years you guys get me. A few weeks went by without an update, resulting in Taliapupu getting ready for the job market again. In February, after longtime coach Bobby Hauck announced his retirement, Taliapupu got the good news. He was granted a 9th season. There was jubilation in Missoula. I was the happiest guy in America, Kennedy said. Then came the announcement of it. Everyone in the whole freaking country is roasting my ass, Taliapupu said. Just about everyone at Montana understands it may be silly for him to play a 9th season. He does hear it from his teammates, referring to him as Unk and calling just about everyone Youngblood. Defensive coordinator Eric Sanders admitted there were staff members who graduated high school around the same time as Taliapupu, and they had a PowerPoint presentation where they went through all of his fashion stages he went through in his college career. It's all in fun, but that's not how everyone sees it. Taliapupu has gotten his fair share of trolls and unpleasant comments telling him to get a job or it's ridiculous to still be playing. It used to really bother him, but now some of it does humor him. It actually fires him up. Sometimes it's kind of like it's fuel for me to do good this next year and be like, all right, you guys want to talk on that smack? All right, I'm going to show you that, he said. It's funny, but at the same time, it's like, all right, cool. I got some ammo. Besides, it's not like he's been playing all of the first 8 years. In the 98 games in those 8 seasons, he's played in just 38 contests. Missing basically 5 seasons of action is more than enough reason to stop playing. But Taliapupu didn't, and that should be viewed as inspiration. It takes a guy with great fortitude and belief in himself that they can come through on the other end. That's what I see with Solo, Kennedy said. We only get so long to play this game. And if he's having a good experience at the University of Montana, then heck, I would say this. I want him around as long as we can keep him. Hey, let's get him an 11th or 12th year. Double-digit years may be pushing it, and don't worry. Taliapupu is pretty sure this is his final year, and he's excited. Coaches describe him as a true leader on a team under a new coaching staff. Sanders said he was the first player he talked to when he was hired to pick his brain. He added Taliapupu has been a vocal leader, able to distinguish what it takes for his teammates to succeed. He's a father to young kids, and so he's got a little bit of an ability to be a goofball too, and he just has a good personality, Sanders said. Obviously, have the maturity that is required to be a father and be responsible for other people, but he can also be a goof and make jokes, and that enables him to connect with his teammates. While a strong final year is what Taliapupu wants, it's not his ultimate goal in 2026. Really, he wants to inspire his teammates and people who learn just an ounce of his journey. Instead of fuel or anger, what I do hope people get is some inspiration of not giving up. Even when your hardest year of life comes, even when you feel like everything's falling in on you and there's nowhere else to go, just get up, dust yourself off, and just keep going. He said, the only way to live is to keep going. So yes, Taliapupu will play a ninth season of college football. The path was nothing he envisioned, but he didn't quit. Taliapupu entered college as a highly touted prospect and will leave full of battle scars he proudly shows off. With his wife and 2 kids, with one more on the way beside him, Taliapupu is standing tall, ready to end his college career strong. It's been a long and painful road, but he is grateful for every bump he endured and persevering to finish out his dream the right way. It's nowhere near been how I planned it when I was coming out of high school. I'm so grateful the way the Lord has worked in my life and kind of just painted this awesome picture that I never saw coming, he said. I wouldn't write it any other way. You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 1:30.
The Mariners' failure of a season hits a new low in Milwaukee. Gabe Laquet, columnist for USA Today, writes, "There's a certain know-it-when-you-see-it moment when a baseball team goes from underperforming to checked out, from disappointing to joylessly headed nowhere. The Seattle Mariners seem to have reached that point. Their 22-0 loss to the Milwaukee Brewers August 18 had it all. Managerial malfeasance, an embarrassing gaffe by a superstar, and in the end, an utter lack of fight that belies the fact that the Mariners are actually in the American League playoff hunt. Well, let's be clear. That doesn't mean they're a good team. The Mariners are 59-67, have been outscored by 45 runs, and have a 60-homer superstar battling .157, nearly 50 points worse than the lowest qualified hitter in the league. In any other year, that would typically invite a house cleaning at the trade deadline and perhaps a few rolling heads in management. In the American League, in the year 2026, however, it gets you just 4 games out of first in the West Division and 3 games out of the wild card. Yet, Seattle's fortuitous positioning can't wash away how dismal this season has been, particularly since expectations were sky high after the Mariners came within 8 outs of their first World Series appearance ever in 2025. Now that Game 7 loss, courtesy of George Springer's historic home run, would not be possible had Mariners manager Dan Wilson not pushed virtually every wrong button in the pivotal 7th inning. And this year has been one hell of a hangover. The Mariners' location in the Pacific Northwest makes them the game's best-kept secret when things are going well. It can also serve to camouflage disappointments. But you can't hide from 22-0. Now, the remarkable thing, it was just a 1-0 game going to the bottom of the 5th. Now that's when the Mariners starter, Bryce Miller, got peppered. Single walk, sacrifice fly, with a 1-out rally. Even then, it was just, 3-0. Lefty reliever Josh Simpson was warming in the bullpen. Christian Yelich was striding to the plate. Wilson stuck with Miller, not unlike sticking with Eduard Bazardo to face Springer all those months ago in Toronto. Like Springer, Yelich crushed a 3-run homer. And then Wilson lifted Miller once again after the fact, but it was game over at that point. The ignominy was just beginning, although reaching a crescendo when position player Leo Rivas was peppered for 9 hits and 9 runs in the bottom of the 8th. Yet only 7 were earned runs, because franchise center fielder Julio Rodriguez lost track of the outs, tossed the ball into the stands, and 2 more runs were scored. Hey, brain farts happen, but combine that with all that's gone wrong with the squad. This was the Mariners' 8th loss out of 11 games. That's a massive spotlight on a bad team. Up 22 the Brewers saw fit to throw their own position player on the mound, catcher Gary Sanchez, and still the Mariners couldn't push across a run. So they joined the 2004 Yankees and the 1975 Pirates for the worst shutout loss since 1888. Now, nonetheless, they woke up Wednesday 4 games behind Houston in the West. The division is so bad, the Mariners' odds of winning it are 23.1%, according to Fangraphs, compared to their 7.4% chance to snag the final wild card, which is just 3 games out of their reach. But the Mariners would have to leapfrog 6 teams, not 2, to claim the final wild card. That's just not going to happen. Bad seasons happen, certainly. But this one seems like a continuation of all that went wrong when the Mariners held the 3-2 AL Championship Series lead, only to go home empty-handed. It seems a lot likelier there's going to be consequences for this failure.
Which players might be on the chopping block? From Michael Mittelhurst Schwartz of USA Today. A dreaded day on the NFL calendar looms in the near future. As training camps wind down and the preseason peters out, each team will face the unviable task of making a significant reduction in force by setting its 53-man roster on August 30th for the start of the upcoming season. That nearly 50% reduction in manpower hardly closes the door on further moves, with franchises continuing to reshuffle in the aftermath while also setting their practice squads. But there's an undeniable sense of finality ahead for many of those who will be sent packing, with a large portion unlikely to make it back to this level, I should say. A good chunk of teams' cuts already seem clear, with only so many positional competitions within any given roster still ongoing, yet some familiar figures could still be looking for a new setting in short order. With 10 days remaining until the cut-down day deadline, here are some of the most notable names from around the league who could be on the chopping block. First, Titans quarterback Will Levis. Things have been rather rough for Tennessee's former starting quarterback since his December 2024 benching. Not only did the Titans select Cam Ward with the number 1 pick in the ensuing draft, but the strong-armed signal caller missed all of the 2025 campaign after opting to undergo shoulder surgery. Nevertheless, his confidence he is a starting caliber passer hasn't wavered. To reclaim that status, however, his exit is likely a necessity, and it could be coming sooner rather than later. With Tennessee having signed one of the more capable backups on the market in Mitchell Trubisky, Levis has been reduced to a clear number 3 option. With development a priority throughout the roster, carrying 3 quarterbacks seems like a luxury that Tennessee cannot afford. The one wrinkle could be Trubisky's right biceps injury, which he suffered on August 17th. Though any long-term issue could prompt some reconsideration of the contingency plan behind center. First-year coach Robert Saleh expressed optimism that the problem would be short-lived. Next is Steelers running back Caleb Johnson. In addressing the battle unfolding behind lead ball carriers Jaylen Warren and Rico Dowdle, Steelers coach Mike McCarthy made clear his priorities. It's important for our players to be able to play all 4 downs, McCarthy said on August 16th, one day after Pittsburgh's first exhibition matchup against the Packers. I think everyone's excited about draft picks and this and that, but you have to be able to play on offense or defense and special teams. I don't like to keep a guy who's just on special teams or just on offense unless his offense or level warrant it. McCarthy was partially giving a shout-out to running back Travis Homer, a special team standout who's worked his way to additional consideration for reps in the backfield. But he also might have been foreshadowing a split with Johnson, the 2025 third-round pick, who's been unable to find his footing with the previous coaching staff or the new one. With Homer getting the nod to start the first preseason game, Johnson logged just 2 carries for 3 yards. That workload didn't seem like it reflected the coaching staff's intentions to keep the second-year back safe. Instead, Johnson's dwindling role over the course of the offseason could culminate with the team sending him packing, as it prioritizes more versatile options further down the roster. Next is Giants wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr. Based on the early returns from his first on-field work in more than a year, the two-time Pro Bowl receiver's return to the Giants looks on track. Despite notching just 2 catches for 6 yards, Beckham consistently broke free of coverage, both underneath and downfield. I'm impressed by the way he looks right now, General Manager Joe Schoen said during the broadcast. That re-emergent skill set should be sufficient to score Beckham a spot in a shaky receiving corps. John Harbaugh, however, was a bit cryptic in his addressing the wideout's future with the franchise. I love Odell, I do. What he's fighting for, I don't know how it's going to turn out, Harbaugh said in a news conference. It's going to turn out the way it turns out based on what happens. But to see his fight, his determination, his humility, just as a friend, that makes me really proud of him. Regardless of Beckham's resolution, the Giants roster call will likely include the departure of a notable receiver, Jalen Hyatt, a former third-round pick who continues to be hampered by leg and ankle ailments, might very well be running out of time after seeing his production wane over 3 years. Next is Browns wide receiver Cedric Tillman. The youth movement is already underway in the Broncos receiving corps, with top picks Casey Concepcion and Denzel Boston figuring to vacuum up plenty of targets alongside Jerry Jeudy. That transition could bump out Tillman, who started 10 games last season but might be blocked off the meaningful reps this fall. A third-round pick in 2023, Tillman has enjoyed a couple of relatively fruitful multi-week stretches for Cleveland, despite the team's severe limitations behind center. But with Boston in tow, the Browns have their big-bodied perimeter target to secure contested catches. A non-factor on special teams, Tillman might need to look elsewhere to jumpstart his career.
Cowboys wide receiver Jonathan Mingo. Camden Brown's ascension from an undrafted rookie out of Georgia Southern to training camp, Darling, has been a fun development for almost everybody in the Cowboys' orbit, except for Mingo. Brown's buzz is approaching a full crescendo after his 2-touchdown performance against the Seahawks. Although Cowboys coach Brian Schottenheimer cautioned that Brown needs to maintain his trajectory, he added, "The game's not too big for him." The same can't be said for Mingo. Through 3 years in the NFL, despite giving up a 4th-round pick to acquire the former 2nd-round selection in November of 2024, the Cowboys have netted a measly 6 catches for 71 yards in 14 career games for the wideout. Jerry Jones initially launched a staunch defense of his highly criticized trade, but it might be time to cut bait. Brown has been lauded by each of Dallas's quarterbacks, and his momentum for the 5th receiver slot might be too much for Mingo to overcome. Next, the Bengals defensive tackle McKinley Jackson. When the Bengals selected Jackson in the 3rd round of the 2024 draft, they envisioned a run-stuffing successor to DJ Reader in the middle of their defense. After limited contributions as a rookie, however, the Texas A&M product seemed to fall out of favor last season with first-year defensive coordinator Al Golden. Jackson's midseason trade request went unfulfilled. He played in just 9 games and 25% of the defensive snaps for a unit that had widespread problems stopping opposing ground games. Now, he looks like an afterthought on a reloaded front. With Dexter Lawrence and Jonathan Allen coming aboard to bump incumbent starters B.J. Hill and T.J. Slayton Jr. to the second team, Cincinnati has extensive depth at what used to be the team's most underinvested position. Chris Jenkins Jr., taken a round ahead of Jackson in 2024, could hold the edge for a final roster spot, while 7th-round rookie Landon Robinson is making a push for consideration. Jackson, meanwhile, has been hobbled by an ankle injury suffered in the preseason opener. Next, Buccaneers outside linebacker Chris Braswell. Now, Tampa Bay's various efforts to supercharge its pass rush in recent years have largely fallen short. It's little wonder, then, that general manager Jason Licht pounced on the opportunity to become more forceful up front by taking Reuben Bain Jr. with the number 15 overall pick last April. But as the Buccaneers embrace one brawny brawler off the edge, it could be preparing to close the door on another. Braswell, a second-round pick in 2024, looks extraneous to the current crop of outside linebackers. Bain and Yaya Diaby are slated to hold down the head roles. Al-Qadin Muhammad was signed in April to add depth alongside Anthony Nelson, who was set to enter his 8th year with the organization. Meanwhile, 2025 fourth-rounder David Walker appears to be on the upswing in his recovery from a torn anterior cruciate ligament last summer. An undrafted rookie Jack Pyburn flashed promise with 2 sacks in the first preseason tilt. That doesn't leave much space for Braswell, who only notched 2.5 sacks in 2 years, to contribute in any meaningful way. Still, in need of significant development as a pass rusher, the Alabama product, as well as the team, might be best off if he tries to polish his game somewhere else. Chargers linebacker Junior Colson. As much as it might pain Jim Harbaugh to let go of a fellow Michigan man, that's the way things could be trending for Colson, a 2024 third-rounder. After a rocky rookie season that included an appendectomy in training camp and landing on injured reserve due to his hamstring, Colson missed all of last year's campaign after having shoulder surgery last August. Now he's stuck behind more reliable options in Deion Henley, Denzel Perriman, and Troy Dye, while Delshon Phillips and Marlowe Max build solid cases to be more than special teams contributors. With Wax making a strong impression in camp and the first preseason game, Colson might have work to do if he's to secure a spot. There's time left for a late surge, and the Chargers might be reticent to give up on a player who has not been able to fully demonstrate his ability. But the roster setup might not be in his favor. And finally, Eagles cornerback Kelee Ringo. The 6'2", 207-pound Georgia product sporadically serves up reminders of his considerable upside, as he did in the preseason opener by hauling in an end zone interception. But the story of Ringo's career in coverage as a pro has been inconsistency. That trend has continued to hold this summer, with his takeaway coming just one play after he was flagged for pass interference. You always want to think about being able to move on and play the next play, Eagles coach Nick Sirianni said after the game. That's mental toughness, having the same attitude, the effort, energy, the enthusiasm. And so that was good. That was positive to see Kelee coming back after that play and make a really nice interception. But Sirianni, defensive coordinator Vic Fangio, and general manager Howie Roseman might not be able to move on so easily from last year's memories of Ringo's inability to seize a starting spot. Next to Mac McWilliams and Jonathan Jones, he might not even size up favorably as a backup. Ringo's saving grace might be his value as a gunner, and yet special teams contribution alone is not going to be sufficient to keep him on the roster.
From the Life section of USA Today, Peter Pan Girl is okay embracing inner child. From Owen Carey of USA Today, Christina Tony Kolushich is a Disneyland superfan who extensively documents her trips to her 91,000 followers on TikTok at BabyTony99. Every year she photographs and films herself with Peter Pan, who is played by various actors. 10 years ago, I met the lost boy who changed my life. Her caption reads on the 2025 photos, a slideshow documenting the photos she has taken since January of 2015. And this is what has brought her a lot of attention online in the past week. After one of her recent videos with Peter Pan received more than 29 million views, many gave her the nickname Peter Pan Girl, while critiquing her interactions in viral videos and memes and speculating on how the performers feel about them. People can take something really small and turn it into something big without even knowing what it's truly about, Kaluush told the USA Today in an interview on Friday, August 14th. The discourse was sparked on July 31st when she shared a video of herself giving a Peter Pan actor a handmade crochet keychain. Some edits of the clip show the character in black and white, staring at the camera, emulating a horror movie scene. I know he went on a cigarette break after this, reads a comment with more than 1.5 million likes on Kaluush's original video. Kaluush, who was 27, said it's been a little rough this week with the internet making memes of her. I've never expected to blow up this much of the entire internet to know I exist. She is a proud Disney adult, a subculture of grown-ups who make pilgrimages to Disney parks. I think being a Disney adult means letting out your inner child, she says. She says she has been going to Disney parks since she was little, but she had an annual pass only since 2015. She says she tries to go to Disneyland once a week. Kaluush says she relates to how Peter Pan is canonically the boy who never grew up, but her love of the character started because of her relationship with the actors. A Peter Pan she met in 2015 had a positive impact on her. He just made a really magical experience for me the first time. When asked her favorite thing at the park, she said, surprisingly, it's not Meet Peter Pan, laughing. My favorite thing to do is actually go on the Astro Blasters. It's the game where you shoot things. Kaluush says that despite online rumors, she was not banned from the park. I actually was there yesterday, she says. She said she didn't seek out Peter Pan. I don't even always meet him, she says. I held a crochet dinosaur for 9 weeks because we didn't see each other. I wouldn't have had it for 9 weeks if I was that crazy trying to find him. Audrey Lowe, an actor who portrayed Peter Pan and other characters at Walt Disney World in Orlando in 2015, says that during training, Disney instructors warned him about adult patrons who might figure out his real name, address, and social media accounts. I had people that learned my schedule, he says. They would just show up, and they would be like the first one for every single one of my sets. But after a while, you learn how to deal with them. A set refers to a block of time that character actors are on stage and interacting with guests. Lull says they involve taking pictures and having improvised conversations, which often circle back to learned character catchphrases and movie references. Lull says he typically had 5 45-minute sets a day. Sarah Daniels, an actress who portrayed a host of characters at Disney parks and on Disney Cruise Line from 2006 through 2017, told USA Today her interactions with children were just so magical. Lull also spoke highly of children. It wasn't the kids that were weird. It was mostly the adults and the teenagers. In 2021, an actress playing Tinkerbell claimed she was harassed by several married men at Disney World when she was 16. Disney said it provided multiple resources to protect cast members' well-being in a statement to The Independent, including on-site police, and encouraged them to report problems. They said repeat offenders can be banned permanently from all Disney parks. USA Today reached out to Disney representative for a comment but got no immediate response. Kaluush says she has witnessed other Disneyland patrons touch character actors or ask them inappropriate questions. She says some male visitors meet the princesses over and over and take photos. They do that every week. She insists she treats the actors with respect, largely because she used to work at Disneyland in 2018 and at the California Adventure Park and various food venues. I strongly believe that because I'm someone who has worked for Disney, when I go there, I always ask them, "Can I hug you?" I allow them to lead the interaction, so I'll wait for him to be like, let's go take a walk. I'm not going to initiate the walk. Kaluush says she has kept in touch with the original Peter Pan she met in 2015, but she tries not to think of them as individuals. The character is singular. I try to keep the Disney magic as like there's only one, and he's the Peter, but I do have favorites.
From the Lifeline section, Making Waves, Salma Hayek. Salma Hayek is a grandmother. The actress, aged 59, took to Instagram on August 17th to announce her stepson, Francois Pinault Jr., welcomed his first baby with wife Lara Cosima Enkel van Donnersmarck. How's that for a name? The post featured a sweet video of Hayek, who is from Mexico, cradling the baby boy and speaking to him in Spanish as he smiles and babbles. Hayek also revealed that his name is Francois, like his father and grandfather, although I will call him Panchitito, she wrote. She wrote it in the caption. Well, I'm sorry, it's Panchito. He seems to love it, and I cannot love him more.
You've been listening to a reading of USA Today for Thursday, August 20th, 2026 on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We read USA Today weekdays at noon. For more information, call 716-821-5555. Your readers today have been
Ken Drost
and Jim Duffy.
If you or people you know shop at any of the Dash's supermarkets, please save Dash's register tapes for radio reading. Our agency receives $2 for every $100 in Dash's register tapes. Radio reading has raised thousands of dollars so far. Anyone can drop off their Dash's tapes to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, between William and Clinton Streets. Or Dash's tapes can be mailed to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, New York, 14227. Any questions on Dash's tapes for radio reading? Call us at 716-821-5555, and thanks for caring. following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability, which